I want to welcome those of you who are joining us on the webinar version of this. My name is Steve Parr. I'm the director of the Gwinnett Metro Baptist Network, and honored to have with me some good friends inside Gwinnett County and also some friends from Lifeway and the Georgia Baptist Mission Board as we talk about staying strong and what churches are doing to stay strong during the midst of the coronavirus crisis that we're experiencing and the shutdown. And I'm going to be sharing in a few moments about some of the research that we've done right here locally that affects particularly the local area and churches that are staying strong. And I will give you this on the very front. It had nothing to do with the size of the church. That's very interesting. We always look sometimes at, we think that bigger churches are healthy and stronger. That's not necessarily true. It could be, should be sometimes, but we're finding all size churches that are doing very well in the midst of this. It has a lot to do with the pastor and the leadership he's providing. Let me do some introductions here though. Let's start just with a brief introduction. Glenn, I'll just call on one at a time. Glenn, name and church real quick.
Glenn McCall. I'm serving at the Colonial Woods Baptist Church as their transitional interim.
Thank you, Glenn. And Steve Green.
Stephen Green. I am serving as the lead pastor at Central Baptist Church in Lawrenceville.
Very good. Dave.
I'm Dave Wiley, the family and discipleship pastor at Ivy Creek Baptist Church in Buford.
Welcome. Richard.
I'm the Lifeway Church partner for the Metro Atlanta area, and any church that needs questions answered concerning Lifeway's resources, I try to find that answer if I don't know it.
Thank you, Richard. And Brother Steve Foster. Steve, you're froze there. Come back one more time.
Sorry, my connection, I think, went out. Steve Foster, Georgia Baptist Mission Evangelism Consultant for the Northeast region.
Very good. So you see, we've got three Steves here and then other people. So welcome you guys. Here's how this is going to go. Just to preview the meeting. Again, we're looking at the three common ingredients that are keeping churches strong through the COVID-19 crisis. As I surveyed our Gwinnett churches, our Gwinnett Metro Baptist churches, I asked them, are you staying strong? And asked them why. And by the way, on the question, I said, I went ahead and said, we're staying strong because God is blessing us. And I had the word God is blessing us, knowing our pastors, they would give glory and thanks to God. And I understand that. And so I wanted to be sure to press them beyond that to the tangible, practical things, because we do know that anything we do well, it's because God has blessed us and enabled us to do that. So we acknowledge that now. But sometimes we can begin to see a pattern of tangible things people are doing, which God is blessing. And so we did find three things that we're going to be talking about during this session from our Gwinnett churches. The second option was, we're struggling, but we're hanging in there. We're doing okay. And the third option was, man, we're I don't say dying, but I said, we're really hurting right now. It was interesting. I wish I'd got a lot more responses, obviously, and not every church responds, but nobody would acknowledge that they're really in trouble. I got none that did that. I began to analyze that. I'll give you an example. I'll have a pastor will call me and his church is in trouble and he needs help and people aren't responding. And so I will reach out to him and say, okay, let's talk or let's get together. And then 3 days go and I haven't even heard back from him. I mean, I don't get an email, not a text or anything. And I say, that's the problem. I mean, if he's not responsive, that's what's happening with his members, in other words, see? So real quick, I pick on a clue there. There's a leadership issue there with his responsiveness, his engagement, and that may be the issue with his church, quite frankly, if he doesn't respond, simply as a courtesy. You don't always say you don't have to resolve something, but at least, give a little note, hey, I'll get back to you or whatever. Well, right here, churches that did not respond, that may be telling in of itself because they're not engaging, in other words, and they're not looking for help and they're just coasting along. And I'll comment and have to make some observations about our churches that are really in trouble. And I will say this, in our network, and I believe others, we will lose some churches in the next 12 months because what has happened is they have just totally shut down and not done the three things that we're talking about. And I think a lot of them went into this thinking this would be over by Easter, or this would be over in a few weeks. Now we're looking at, 8, 10, 12 weeks, I think, best case scenario. And so I just thought it was interesting. I got no responses from those churches. And I know there are some because I've talked to some in terms of just personal interaction. They're going to be hard pressed to make it. So we're going to talk about those things in a few moments. Now I'm going to do a few announcements. Going to do kind of like a little seminar thing, just some things I've learned. And then these guys are going to help me discuss and brainstorm how we can attack these three areas, because this is not over. Although we are having soft openings now over the next 3 to 6 weeks, I think we're still maybe 2 or 3 months away from full out being open like we used to be. Maybe more. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert on those things, but I just know we need to assume we're going to still continue to be very limited in terms of those opportunities. So real quickly, give you some announcements in case you're a part of our network. I sent out yesterday, if you're watching this fresh before May 11th, particularly if you're watching this, about the Pastor Income Recovery Assistance Plan. And Steve Foster and Richard Edfeld, if you haven't seen that, our association, our network has allotted $90,000 to help our pastors who have been hardest hit with loss of income. And we're not just giving checks. There's some, dynamics there, but it's a great opportunity. But anyway, that information, those applications are now available. If you know a pastor who has been hard hit by this situation, we can replace potentially up to $4,500 of his income that he's lost. And that is a fantastic thing that our network is doing. Second thing real quick, next Tuesday, a week from today, those watching this live, we're doing a session based on some things I've done in the past, last couple of years on keeping kids connected to church into their adult lives. It's from a book I wrote called Why They Stay. But if you've never heard me share this, or even if you have, I'm talking specifically about the pastor's role in keeping kids connected. And I'm going to also, there's some interesting things that would fit well with where we are with the COVID-19 situation that actually gives you a little bit of leverage and advantage with kids if you take advantage of it. I'm going to teach you what those things are so you can do that, because we don't want to leave kids out of the equation right now while we're going through this. Third thing is, if you watch this live today, 2 days from now, we've got a kids cohort meeting. So if you've got a kids minister, be sure to let them know that. Get the link from me if you need it. Fourth quick announcement. This was not true of us prior to the last week. It used to be you could only give to us through check in the mail or coming by, but now there is an online portal through which you can give to our network. So if you need, your church treasurer needs that, or your clerk, it's another way to give quickly and easily, just FYI. And finally, just want to say our website is that close to being ready to launch. We're working on it. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, be another source you can go to for helps along the way. So those are my announcements right there. Okay. All right. Guys, you ready to go? 3 common things I found as I surveyed our churches who said we are staying strong. We've got this thing here or the COVID-19, and our churches, honestly, not just doing okay. Some of them are flourishing. I'm seeing churches are doing as good as ever. I'm finding churches that are receiving 90, 95%, 100, and even 105% of the offerings they were receiving prior to this happening. In some cases, they had a 1 or 2 week glitch, but then it really rebounded. And in some cases, has rebounded stronger. I was speaking with a pastor this morning in another part of our state who had proposed to his congregation, and this was his congregation. He said, I just want to challenge you. The government is providing a $2,400 check, I think $1,200 per person. Pray about how to use that and consider using it for kingdom's sake. And they're just having a boom right now with generosity, just by putting that on the table, not requiring anybody to do it, just laying out a challenge. Say, just pray about that as you receive that extra income if God has blessed you. And many people are responding. Now, it's great, that testimony from him this morning. So with our churches, what are those traits, those things that they are doing that are enabling them to stay strong? So real quickly, as I surveyed, 3 things bubbled up just in every situation where the churches are strong. The first 2 I thought were very obvious. The third one was not so obvious. Now, I'm speaking to some high-level pastors here, leaders, and it may be for you obvious, okay? But bear in mind, it's not for everybody. Everybody be doing it. But on the other end, as I've engaged churches that are struggling, although they didn't respond to the survey, I will tell you, these things are glaringly absent, especially the third thing, which was the less obvious thing. So I'm going to mention all three, and then we're going to go in reverse order and go to the one that's least obvious. I'm going to share some things I'm seeing, and then we're going to brainstorm. And then if, as time permits, we'll do the second, and then back to the first one, which is the most obvious I see most people doing. So here's the seminar part, then we're going to have discussion. All right, the number one thing that was the most obvious is they are delivering their services online. Steve, that's a no-brainer. Evidently it's not. Did you know we do have some churches that are not doing that at all? They've shut down literally. And here's what I'm hearing, and if you're watching this, and if you're this category, I beg your pardon, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I'm finding it tends to be older pastors with older congregations who are just saying, I don't have the ability, I can't, we can't, they won't. And I want to give you this leadership thought on the very front end. When you as a pastor ever use this phrase, my people won't. My people won't, you fill in the blank. I'm going to say it straight up, and I've been in leadership a long time. It says more about your leadership than about your congregation. Your job, among many as a pastor, is to develop leaders and to move people and to influence people and to motivate people and to inspire people to do things they never imagined they would do. And I have seen some older pastors embrace technologies they had not embraced in the past, and delivering their messages online has nothing to do with age. And I've seen other pastors lead their congregations. And here's what I'm finding. My mom, I'm not going to say her age because I would not want to embarrass her, but she's a lot older than I am because she's my mom. She watches services online, and she's way up there. I'm just telling you without insulting my mom. And we cannot say that senior adults will not or cannot or don't have the capacity to get online to watch a service. Yes, they can. Yes, they do. But they may need us to hold their hand and walk them through it, or even provide some resources. But that excuse does not hold water. So the first thing that we see churches that are staying strong, they're continuing to deliver worship and Bible study. And we'll talk about that later. I'm seeing some pastors, including some I see in front of me here, have actually, if anything, enhanced that and are providing and delivering more Bible study than they were just doing one hour a week, so to speak. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But that's the obvious thing you probably see. Time permitting, we'll come back and see what we're learning, though, about that and what we need to do with that moving forward. The second thing that is obvious, I thought, but it's less obvious than the first one, but the church is staying strong have picked up on, is multiple streams for giving the offering. Now, again, you go back to our network. Up until a week ago, the only way you could give a check to our association was to mail a check or bring by a check. So I've had to get us caught up as a network on that. Now, again, I've just started this job. It's something I just came to recognize when I got here. And so I think it's just an obvious thing. We need to have that portal regardless of the COVID-19. It just makes sense for your church treasurer to have that option. It makes it easier. The bottom line is I'm seeing churches that are continuing to thrive. If they didn't have more than one way, and some already did, but now they're opening up multiple ways for a person to give their offering. And you may be thinking, Steve, you're talking about online giving, aren't you? Yes, but I'm finding the churches that are thriving, they're not stopping there. They're opening up, again, multiple streams to give. And I would use the former illustration of the pastor from another part of the state, also multiple ways to inspire people to be generous, with the $2,400 check, just reminding people here's an opportunity with his congregation. So we're going to come back and talk about that. But again, that is the most obvious. Now let's get to the one that was not the most obvious in my as I observe churches. I'm even finding churches that are doing number one, online services, but they're not doing number two and number three, the giving and number three. I'm finding churches that are doing number one, the online services, and number two, the online giving, but they're not doing this third thing. And this third thing I think is very critical. It's something that I have taught in my small group Sunday school hat through the years that we should be doing anyway. But I'm finding the churches that weren't even necessarily doing this prior to the shutdown have really embraced this, and it's making a difference. Before I introduce it, I'll give you a clue by giving you a principle I've always taught about small groups. I want you to imagine that you're a Bible study leader, just as an example. And suppose you got 15, 18, 20, whatever number on your ministry list, your role, whatever you call that, 20 people. You, as a Bible study leader, you can track every Sunday how many ministry interactions you had in the previous week. And I've done this in churches where I've served as interim pastor, where we tracked the total number of ministry engagements we had the previous week. And I've been in more than one church where we did this in the summer and avoided a summer slump because we did this. In one church, which was a larger church of about 400, we set a goal for 10,000 ministry engagements in the course of summer, or contacts, and we did not reach the goal. We only got like 7,600. But did we fail? No. We contacted, invited, and ministered to hundreds more people than we would have without the goal being out there. And guess what else? Our attendance did not go down that summer. That was very interesting. In another church, we measured the contacts and began posting them each week in our church bulletin at the time. And after several weeks, I had our leaders to make observations. And I put up last week's attendance and total number of ministry engagements or contacts we made that week. And I said, what do you see there? And a gentleman raised his hand and said, well, it looks like the weeks where we engaged more people, the following Sunday, more people showed up to worship. Yes. What else do you see? So, Brother Steve, it looks like the weeks where we ministered to fewer people, there was less attendance the following Sunday. Right, as I was trying to show them that, I was able to tangibly show them, and here's my principle: your weekly attendance in your Bible study, or as a pastor, the weekly attendance in your church is directly related to the number of ministry engagements that you and your members have during the course of a week. Let's take a church that averages 75 in worship. And let's suppose during the course of the week, they invite 3 people to come to church and call 7 people who are absent. That's 10 people. Great. That's wonderful. But take another church 4 miles up the road averaging 75, and they invite 50 people the next week who have never been before, 50 invitations. And by the way, not all 50 are going to show up. But of those 50, 3 or 4 are going to visit the next Sunday. And they call everybody who was absent the previous week that they know, who are members of that church, who did not show up for Bible study or for worship. And so they make about 60 or 70 other, so 50 invitations, 60 or 70 follow-ups. They've made over 100 ministry engagements or contacts. Now, 2 churches running 75. One, they've had 10 ministry engagements, and the other, they've had over 100. It's not rocket science. Who's going to likely have more additional people show up to worship next Sunday? It's not rocket science. So I teach this principle, and yet it is amazing how few churches really emphasize or leverage this with their Bible study leaders and with their congregation in a very tangible, systematic, strategic way. But here's the third thing I've found about the churches that are staying strong during the COVID-19 crisis. They're delivering online services, number one. Number two, multiple streams of giving. But here's the number 3, is they have ramped up, not ramped down. They've ramped up the one-to-one ministry engagement with their members. This is huge. And I'm finding they're doing it in a multitude of ways. And you and I are going to brainstorm this. But to conclude my seminar part, before we have discussion, I want to share with you 10 ways, examples of ways churches have done this, okay? So I'm going to give you a list of 10, okay? Here we go. Number 1, this is, again, an obvious one. Social media. Even some pastors who haven't been on Facebook, who have not been on Twitter, who have not been on Instagram, while we've always bemoaned social media and the ills of it and the negativity of it, and there's, you could argue that side of it, what would we be doing now without social media? And so I'm finding that church staffs, those who are doing well, even some pastors who were not engaged on social media prior to this, they're now understanding, hey, this is a avenue of ministry. Now, I want to say, when it comes to social media engagement and engaging people, blast, B-L-A-S-T-S, do not count. That means when you post something that goes to everybody, that's not what I'm talking about. It's when I send you a personal one-to-one message. Stephen, how you doing? Steve, how's your family doing? Hey, Richard, how's your son doing? Dave, how's it going with your family with the shelter in place? Do y'all need anything? One-to-one question with a one-to-one response. where by Facebook Messenger or just posting on their page or a text message or something, but not an email to the whole congregation. How can I help you? Now, I have sent some emails to our pastors, but this won't surprise you. And I don't do this every day, but a couple times a week, I spend 2 or 3 hours on the phone just calling pastor to pastor to pastor to pastor, just making individual calls. And I like doing this Zooms. I'd love to have more, but you know, what usually happens, I had a Zoom meeting last night with just a couple of pastors. And so after it was over, we finished the business and then we just talked and spent time together. That carries a lot more weight than me sending 140 churches an email. And so you got to hear that about your church too. Second thing here is this, calling every member. I've seen some churches that have never done this before. I can't remember when they've done it. They've actually made an effort to call every member. Even the members, they don't even know who they are. They haven't been there in 8 years. They've just dropped off. They've tried to call everybody. And you say, Steve, I don't have time to do that. I didn't say the pastor is calling everybody. I said the pastor is leading effort for the congregation. It might be I call Steve. Hey, Steve, would you make 7 phone calls for me? I'm going to read you off the phone number. Say, hey, Steve Foster, I've got 7 numbers. Would you call these 7 people and just tell them, hey, once to me how you doing and pray for you. Hey, Richard, I've got you 7. So I'm calling one person for every 7 or one person for every 10 and giving them numbers. So I'm calling people I know will help me with this. I'm calling on the low-hanging fruit, in other words, and saying, well, you call these other people. What am I doing? I'm interacting with these 1 in 7 or 1 in 10, whatever your ratio is. And then they're calling, and I'm getting some of the benefit of that when they're doing this engagement on behalf of the church with me giving them a question. So are you taking advantage of this shelter-in-place time where you may not have done to literally call every member, updating information, checking on prayer requests? And you might even find out there's folks who have moved to Texas. Well, you need to know that, you know, whatever the case is, all right? So you gotta have systems though to do that, okay? Third thing is real-time service engagement. Steve Green, I was in your service on Sunday. I wanna commend you. I saw you're doing this. If you're doing a live service, you need to designate someone to be at their computer, engaging with the people. And Steve, I'm gonna tell you, we were passing notes during your sermon, just so you know, okay? You know, the teenagers passed the notes. Well, I didn't because I was trying to listen to your sermon, but people were. I don't think it's a bad thing. They were acting, hey, Bob, how y'all doing? Steve, you got a comment about that on the engagement?
We started 2 weeks ago, we started premiering. So instead of live, it's pre-recorded, and then we premiere it on Sunday morning at the time. And that allows me to actually sit in those comments, and I was the one directly interacting with everybody.
Beautiful. And that's the thing, if it's recorded, you do it. But if not, you need to enlist someone to be doing what Steve did, kind of your engagement person, maybe a staff member, maybe a volunteer. Are you doing that to engage? As soon as people sign on, hey, Mobley family, glad to see you. Wow, you know, you're acknowledging people are stepping into the room, and you'll get a little back and forth chatter. I think it's worth it, even if it takes away a little bit from your message, a little bit. I don't think it's extreme. Honestly, people get up and go grab coffee while and you got to acknowledge that, okay? Especially when it's online. So I think there's an advantage though, having that engagement. The fourth thing I've been seeing is the delivery of treats to your members. As a matter of fact, where I'm a member, we had a family come down to over to my home Saturday at 3 p.m., dropped on our front porch some goodies. It was actually for my wife and daughter who sing in our choir and help lead children's choirs. So it's basically around our choir in this case. And they, you know, rung the doorbell, stepped back, talked from a distance, hey, we got something for you. And I went out and talked to the husband. He was in the car. I happened to be working outside. He said, we've been doing this since 9 this morning. So they'd spent, right there, they were at 6 hours going house to house to house. So again, I've heard of pastors delivering donuts. I've heard of pastors, you know, getting members go out to deliver things to homes, treats. You don't spend a lot of money here. It's not the treat. But coming up with, the treats or some goodie or just to go by. I saw one of our pastors, like Marvin Jones, Sunday morning, instead of having a service, they took a camera, got a couple of carloads of people, went to homes with their cameras, and we're doing a Facebook Live and just going to them, hey, y'all can't come to us, we're coming to you. And they were singing like, have Christmas caroling? They were doing some hymn caroling on these lawns of these people, of the members on Sunday morning, just going house to house to their members saying, we miss you, we can't wait to get you back. So this delivery of treats home to home or Christmas caroling, hymn caroling, these type of things, I think they're meaningful. I know it was meaningful for my family that somebody took time and They took 6 hours. So as a pastor, as a congregation, how might you do that? Okay. Number 5, Zoom meetings. We're doing Zoom right now. But are you, as a pastor, and are you having your leaders, not just, now you can do this for Bible study, Sunday school, whatever, but how about just to say, hey, Tuesday night, 6:30, I'm just going to be on Zoom. Email me for the link. We're just going to have a little fellowship time and do what we're doing right here, especially in the evening or on a Saturday. And by the way, you don't have to have 20 people. Sometimes it's better to have 4 or 5 people in a Zoom meeting. So the numbers aren't the issue here, okay? And like today, we're recording this so others can watch it. That may not be something you record, but again, it's an opportunity, again, to engage members face-to-face, close as you can get to it right now in many cases. So be sure you're doing this, and not just you, but other leaders, your Sunday school teachers, your Bible study leaders are doing Zoom interactions like this. Number 6 would be parades. I saw a parade the other day online. You may have seen it, where a congregation did a parade by the pastor's house, one by one. I thought it was so cool, just to encourage the pastor and his wife. We could reverse that. We could pull together a group from our church and do a parade of our senior adults homes or something, and just go by, direct your cars, go by, blow the horn. We love you. Taking the treats maybe another level there, but that's just something for fun. But also, you've got 6 or 7 carloads of folks. You're having a little fellowship there with the social distancing to engage your members. Number 7, something I've seen, videos for Sunday. This is where you engage your members. One of the coolest things I think I saw, it might have been, might have been Chestnut Grove, I'm not sure. But they took a scriptural passage, took a text, a long text, and had members read it. And if you have the resources, they took somebody and they put together like 11 families. Verse 1 was read by this family, verse 2, verse 3, verse 4. So you had like 11 families read the text. And so before the sermon, instead of just your face, 11 faces came up from that church as it was reading through the text. Now that takes some technology, I understand, to do that, or somebody. And by the way, don't think you don't have the resources. You think, Steve, we don't have the budget. I don't have a staff. I don't have anybody do that. All I need to ask you is this. Do you have a 17-year-old who's a member of your church? That's all you need, okay? Give them the challenge and watch them many times. My daughters, it's amazing the things I can do with video that it take me all day. But again, because they're more acquainted with technology, so don't assume someone cannot do that for you. But I thought you were engaging the 11 to get them to do it, first of all. But then that Sunday to get, it's kind of more of a stretch on this point, but I think it would fit to some degree. Next thing would be church drive-by. Steve, let's combine the offering with this issue. I think you told me about the senior adult gentleman who offered to do something at your church. What, you doing that on offering, Steve Green? Was it your church doing the offerings, drive-by offerings?
No, we've been doing mail-in and online, and then our office, they can drop it by the office at limited times.
All right, well, let me tell you what I found out here. I thought it was you, Stephen, to somebody else. I had a pastor tell me, he said, we told our senior adults, we told everybody, senior adults especially, that you can come by our church on Monday mornings from 10 till 11:30, or Tuesday mornings 10 to 11:30. We've got a tent set up. You can drive by and drop in your offering. He says, we're having about 24 families a week do the drive-by drop-in offering. It gives you, if you did as a pastor, a chance for engagement, social distancing. And if 20 families do that in a medium-sized church, that may be 10 families that would never mail it in or use online sources. So again, that goes back to point 2, but also gives you a point of engagement. Even if you did it 2 hours a week where you set up a tent outside, you say, hey guys, drive by and they'll have a table set out. We'll guard the offering, make sure nobody walks off with it. You can drop it in, and I just want to say hey to you or pray for you when you come by. Another way to engage people personally, where they're coming to you instead of you going to them. But I thought something creative I saw somebody do. Number 9, I think First Neville did this. They assigned every senior adult or every senior adult couple to a teenager. They took every teenager that's active in their church and took every senior adult and gave the teenagers 1, 2, 3, 4 couples. You got to do the ratio for your church. And every week, every teenager who's on this, it's your teenagers who are willing to, they call every senior adult, say, do you have any prayer needs? Is there something you need that I could check on for you? How cool to have those teenagers interacting with those senior adults. But again, you're getting personal engagement, which is our point. You're ramping up the amount of engagement one-to-one or with families, with your members. And then number 10, there's something I put on here. I haven't heard of a church doing this. I broadly did, but I thought of this. Now is a good time to do surveys with your congregation. Phone surveys, one-to-one surveys. But here's the deal. Whenever your church votes on something, you've got winners and losers. But one of the things you can do right now, especially if you're thinking about some new things in the future and church is not going to be what it used to be like, you can survey your congregation with no issue. Steve Green and I were talking about something he's about to do. I said, it's always better when you try something new to call it a pilot. Use the word P-I-L-O-T. And that way, if it doesn't work, you can walk it back and nobody thinks anything about it. But if you just initiate it and 3 weeks later call it back, people think you failed. Nobody ever thinks of a pilot as a failure because a pilot is we're just test driving, okay? Now, same thing's true here. If there's something in your church and you're afraid to put it on the table because you're afraid you'll cause a mess, you could right now survey your congregation one-on-one or one family to one, and you'll begin to get a sense of how they feel about an issue. You may realize, hey, I've got 85% support for this. What am I waiting on? If you send out an email and publish the results, you might have got in hot water if it's gone the other way and they think you're about to change something. But you can give context now and get engagement and begin to measure the willingness to do things in the future that you haven't been able to do in the past. And I think now is the time to do that, given the situation we're in, to introduce new things as we do move back to live services, especially in the months to come when we're back like we just full steam ahead. But we want to be better than we were when we left before. Now's the time to find out what kind of changes you might make without stirring up or causing a mess by doing surveys. And again, you might have to train 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people to help you with that. But again, as during the survey, you're getting engagement. You're not publishing results. You can if you want to. You may just say, I didn't go like we wanted. You may say, hey, wow, I realize we've got strong support to do so-and-so. And that way, when you bring it to a vote, it's kind of like the meeting before the meeting. You know the support you've got. And pastors, I have seen pastors underestimate or overestimate their support or opposition to an issue and either make a bad decision or no decision because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. In other words, the complainers, sometimes we think everybody's against it. Everybody's not against it. Your complainer's against it. And he'll tell you everybody's saying, and no, everybody, 2 people have said. Most people will be for you. Or it could be just the opposite. Most people are against it. Be careful. Put the brakes on. You need to know that now's the time to be doing those kind of things. When I think you can maybe get by with it, maybe in a way you couldn't when we were fully meeting together. So it gives you that a reason to call. It gives you interaction, but also information. So I brainstormed 10. Now, let's get to you guys. I told you it's a webinar and also a time for you to share. So, and I shared probably more than I wanted, but I hope it was helpful. I hope you got some ideas. Let's talk about the staying connected to every member. What else would you add to that list, either that you have done, or it's okay to say, I've seen another church doing this. It intrigues me. We haven't, but it sounds like a great idea. Something we may or may not do ourselves. But what are some other ideas that you guys have heard? So wave at me and I'll call on you. And all 5 of you, by the way, not just the network members here.
Steve?
Glenn.
I have an advantage in a way because the church where I'm serving as interim, there was a lot of struggles there and financially and otherwise. And so as far as contacting, I agree. I go way back to the days of constant contact consciousness, all that from the growth spirals and all that. But, one of the things I kept saying to our people when I first got there was, we need to do more to inform people rather than assume everybody knows what's going on.
Right. So
by doing that slowly but surely, by the time this happened, people were already used to the fact that we want to make sure we over promote whatever's going on. So that means contacting everybody. I personally contact people, and we've made sure our deacons are following up on their deacon family list, and I regularly promote that as well as check in. Have you heard from so-and-so, And then, of course, another one of our contacts, and I was real proud of one of our classes this week because they did our first Zoom small group or Sunday school. And they did it Sunday morning just before the online worship. So it worked out real good. I listened in. It was obvious everybody enjoyed it. It was just like we're doing now. Everybody seemed to be enjoying that. The thing I'm failing at, I never have been good at this. I love to get a card. It's always encouraging. And I've encouraged others to do it. I've got cards that I could keep myself pretty busy with, and others too. But we haven't done that yet. But to me, I still think in this day and time, a mailed card still is very, very encouraging to people. We've done the Zoom meetings, we've done the conference calling with our cell phones, that kind of thing. So that's some of what we've done or are doing.
And the card, if it's handwritten or personally written, can mean something. It's
Absolutely.
not as interaction, but it is stronger than a blast or a type something. Okay. Now, Dave, you're from a larger congregation of several hundred, multiple services. It's a bigger challenge for you guys. So what are you doing that's vanilla? What are you doing that's maybe a more creative side for your congregation?
Probably, the thing that we did is we ramped up our live stream pretty quickly like everybody else. But unlike what you were talking about earlier, while the service is going on, I'm sitting there on my computer engaging with whoever is online. And so we've really done that. What seems to be getting the most response is our pastors each day of the week during the work week is doing a video devotion. And so we'll post that to Facebook and to our Vimeo page, and that gets a lot of response. That's that connection through the week. Our Sunday schools are doing, we're all over the place as far as connections there. We have a couple of them that are doing Zoom meetings and doing very well with it. We have some that their success has been better with sending out lesson notes and kind of teaching from an email and then getting responses back from that. Those classes are really relying on the care group side of things to where they call through their care groups each week. So we're being able to see the needs. Our deacons have done a great job of doing the care group side of things. And so that's probably more along the things that we've been doing all along, but then you add the technology on top of it. That's been good. People have enjoyed at least having that connection.
Right.
We had a couple of classes that were a little slow to join in and realized we're going to be doing this for a while, so maybe we better learn that while we can. So it's been good. I've got one class that they meet a couple of times during the week. They meet on Sunday for the lesson, and then they meet on Wednesday nights to do prayer and kind of have some fellowship amongst their group. So I think that's a great model, and I've encouraged that with as many groups as we can.
I'll tell you another good model. My daughter, son-in-law, who live in Winder, Georgia, their church, for their it's a young adult group. They do women on one night and men on the other, and it's like I think women Tuesday, men Thursday. So they have for their class in the men and women. But here's the advantage: it allows the other spouse to keep the kids while the other spouse is online having the Bible study time. So that's a good idea in this situation. They really like it. So it takes one night a week for them. I think I'd add, Dave, too, and this could apply to everybody, but especially a larger congregation. You've got some teachers that are just like leading the way. So be sure you're publishing best practices to your other teachers. Hey, I want to come in and Glenn McCall because they are doing so-and-so. You're giving everybody a hint. It'd be a good idea if you did this without being heavy-handed about it. So publishing those best practices for the teachers who aren't necessarily applying the best.
I lose the speaker.
So any of you could do that. Stephen Green, how about ideas again on personal engagement you've heard of, seen, doing? What strikes you there, brother?
We're actually, we're getting ready we are ordering flowers for our mothers for Mother's Day.
Good. Hey, great thought with it coming up, by the way. Yeah.
And so I'm going to enlist a few other people to help me just drive around town and deliver them. But something we've done, not consistent, but a lot of churches will hand something out to the mothers on Mother's Day and just realize that that's going to be a big absence for them and the appreciation factor. So we're just going to be dropping them off at their doorstep, kind of doing what you're talking about, staying at a distance, but dropping a little flower arrangement for each of them. And then I just got to echo what the other guys are saying. The deacon ministry has been so huge for us. We got, and we already had this in place, but it just was the right thing for the right time. The deacons they each have their list of members, and anytime we need to get information out, we can do it within a matter of a few hours and have the personal touch to it. We still send the emails and do the Facebook posts for vital information, but if we want that personal touch to hit everybody, I get the deacons involved, and they're really good about that.
Good. Steve Foster, I know you connect with a lot of churches in Northeast Georgia. What are you hearing out there in terms of engagement with pastors and congregations and their members, given our shelter-in-place situation?
Dave alluded to this, but the daily devotions that some pastors are doing on Facebook and YouTube and so on, I know in y'all's association, of course, is so large. Craig at Ivy Creek, Em and Houston at First Lawrenceville, Stephen Green at Central.
Yeah.
They are just hitting a home run. And I know there's other guys I've left out are hitting a home run with their daily devotions. And I'll be honest with you, selfishly, I hope this continues after we get back to, quote, our normal gatherings. It's a blessing I post a verse on Facebook every morning. It's a blessing to scroll down and see these devotions these pastors are doing. And not just pastors, I know David Mills at Beach Haven, I noticed that he does some, but he's got a pretty good sized staff. Some of his staff will do it. But I think that's a great way to encourage and stay connected to your members. And because it's public, you've got a lot of guys like me and probably lost people that happen upon it. So, but the ones I'm seeing, especially in y'all's association, they're just quality. They're hitting a home run. You can tell they're really thinking it through what they're doing. And I think that's a great way to stay connected. So,
Richard, you got a Southeast United States kind of, yeah, Georgia, Florida. You get North Carolina. What are your area, Richard, for Lifeway?
I cover the northern half of Georgia. I go down to basically Warner Robins, and I have about 12, 14 churches here in Western North Carolina that I relate to.
What are you hearing, Richard, in terms of personal engagement with pastors and churches?
A couple of things that's run through my mind. I know you're about a month away from summer quarter of Sunday school curriculum. And of course, we're not sure what it's going to look like in June, but you're going to have to anticipate getting the literature out. You can, as Glenn talked about, you can do a good old-fashioned literature distribution, either creating some teams or Sunday school classes, delivering the quarterly to the door safely, or have them come swing by the church to pick it up underneath the portico, set up some times where people can pick up their material, and that would be a good contact point there. One thing my daughter-in-law has done out in Texas, she's a children's minister, and it's been interesting to see. She's had different Sunday school teachers or just parents where they would take on a daily or several times a week basis, read a short book, or have their daughter or son read a short book, and the other people in that kid's ministry would kind of chime in, and that's a good contact point in getting people involved in this time of being physically distanced from each other.
Yes.
So, being from Lifeway, the Sunday school curriculum, I think is a good opportunity to reconnect and build some anticipation as well.
I agree. And next week we'll do our Keeping Kids Connected seminar. We'll talk about some ways to engage kids. I think it's important also. I'm talking about adults today. We're not talking about kids, but kids also. And I want to commend our pastors who are delivering again more Bible study, the devotions. But remember, that does not fit necessarily in category 3, which is engagement, where, that's more like a blast. That's not sending out an email to everybody. But we've got to find a way where we're engaging interactively, which means you're getting a response from somebody. Sending cards, as Glenn mentioned, is a great idea, but that is not the same as interaction where you're going back and forth. So these 10 things I'm trying to give you is where you're actually having a back and forth engagement. And again, going back to my original principle, before shelter in place, I've taught, I've seen it, I've tested it, I've done it, is that you can directly correlate the number of engagements between your members and others, ministry, what do you want to call it, contacts, ministry engagements, whatever. You correlate the number that take place course of the week to your attendance the following Sunday. The church is staying strong. They've ramped that up because of the circumstance, but they've tapped into a former principle. And think about a principle should be universal in its application. It would work at all times. The challenge with this is high maintenance to have. That's why a lot of Sunday school classes don't do this. It's very high maintenance to contact everybody every week. And you don't want to, frustrate somebody by, hounding them or whatever. I know you have to be, measured there. But at the same time, what many people do is they do the opposite. They just don't do any kind of engagement. I think you need to do a lot of engagement on a measured approach with individuals, but you've got to do, it's again, that law of large numbers. And Corinthians says, he who sows sparingly reaps sparingly. He who sows bountifully reaps bountifully. When you're sowing engagement with not just your congregation, but prospects, and I say, people might potentially come to your Bible study, watch your sermon online, come to your church later. When you sow bountifully, you will reap bountifully. And that's what our churches have tapped into, either on purpose or inadvertently. But I couldn't believe it when I was saying, what are you doing? Boom, boom, boom. This is coming up every time. And I'm saying, not every church is doing that. A lot of churches are doing the online, and that's it, okay? Online and plus giving, but not this. This is, I think, a key ingredient. Let's wrap this up in the next 5-6 minutes, guys, by talking about number 1 and 2, though, delivering online. And we can't stop doing that when we begin to reopen, because our senior adults are going to be limited still, some of our families. So what are you learning in terms of your best practices about delivering online? What's the future looking like? And I'm going to kind of blend these two questions. Also, online giving, multiple streams. We mentioned the drive-by option earlier. If you've got any other thoughts on that, I mentioned earlier the idea about the $2,400, just asking people to be generous. Got other ideas on either one of those two? Let's pop those out real quick to wrap this up. Again, they're the more obvious, but might have an idea somebody hadn't thought about that could improve what they're doing now. So online delivery, multiple streams of giving. What are you doing, or what have you heard that might help other pastors watching this recording?
Steve, I had a question, if I could, with
Yes,
Richard. Is that okay?
By all means.
And it really does affect the first point about the streaming. But actually, Richard, I've seen where Lifeway has online Sunday school. I know when I was at North Metro, they send out the lesson and that kind of thing, actually by email. And I had asked our Sunday school director to look into that. I don't know that we've had a chance yet. Do you know anything about that?
I'm a little fuzzy on that definition.
Well, for instance, it's the like, say, exploring the Bible as a, as one of the criteria curriculum. And actually, I still do. They still send it out. I still get that online, every week. And
Okay.
so I didn't know. Frankly, again, we'll check into it. But I just thought while you're on there, I'd like to. I didn't know if you knew anything about it.
When this hit us this spring, one of the things Lifeway did was made available online all of our curriculum options by age group, free, and so it could be sent out. Now, I'm not encouraging you to wait till summer to see if it's going to be there, because I can assure you it's not going to be there for free. But because we're encouraging people to go ahead and place a literature order, either be it printed or you can do a digital approach. And then if we're still kind of secluded come June, you'll be able to have that opportunity to get it at curriculum.lifeway something, where you can email it out to your leaders, and it would have all the leader helps, plus it'd have the member helps, the member guide that they could send that out to their members. So that will continue to be available. Of course, you have it digitally. We've had it digitally where you'd have the entire piece as well. So those are available. There are a couple other different things that can be used as well. Smallgroup.com is an opportunity where you can customize a teaching plan. So there are several options. If any of y'all want more details, I can just email me or call Steve and get my contact information. I know Dave knows who I am, and Glenn, you may have my email already, but I'll help any way I can.
Okay, you bet. Any other thoughts real quick on the number 1 and 2? We'll wrap this up next 2 or 3 minutes here for the top of the hour. Online delivery, multiple streams of giving. All right.
Steve, I was going to say, we took Lifeway up on that offer about doing the online giving. You know, they offered a free process for it. We're still having a glitch with it. It turned out that they sent us a link for a different church. So I've tried to encourage our people not to be donating to that church. But we are doing the multiple opens. And so for a small church like ours, it's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, I guess good. Good. All right. All right, let's go around real quick. Just a last word, just take about 20 to 30 seconds. Key takeaway, key thought, word of encouragement, however you want to do it. So get ready, get set. Steve Green, final word, brother.
Man, I would just say, you know, all these guys that are having trouble going online, you don't have to be fancy and you don't have to do it like the big church.
Right.
You can even get out an iPhone and shoot a live video. It's pretty easy to learn how to do that. And the good thing about it is there's so much content out there now that's amateur like that people kind of almost expect a little bit of amateur out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say, if you're watching this and you still haven't begun delivering online, hey, get with us. We'll get you resources, people, some training. Man, I'll be honest with you, you're behind the curve, but it's never too late to get started. I'm telling you, you need to do that if that's the case. And there are some smaller churches, ordinarily smaller out there, who are not. And it's just, listen, the resources are available. Steve Foster, last word, brother. Steve Foster, last word.
I would say the biggest takeaway, and all that you said, Steve, is awesome. I mean, it's just, I took as many notes as I could. I think the one-on-one engagement, just to make sure that we are constantly engaging church members, and not just during this time, but I would say when this is over with, is this contacting members, because I've seen what you've seen, that when you do that Monday through Saturday, Sunday attendance is always better. So,
right. Very good. Glenn McCall, final word, brother.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to offer. We're doing most of what we're talking about now. But I will say this, it's very helpful to me that we continue to have this network working like it is. So that's encouraging. I've jotted down, just like Steve, a couple of things that I had not thought about. And, you know, so yeah, thank you, Steve, for hosting this.
My pleasure. Richard Infeld, final word, brother.
I guess I second what everybody has said as far as the opportunity to stay in contact with people. You know, what Glenn talked about, the CCC a long time ago, you could only do that through a postcard or a phone call or a personal visit. Now you can add text, you can add, you know, a private message, and it's very easy to just say, hey, how you doing? And let people know we still care.
That's right. All right, Dave, save the best for last, brother. Final word.
I second what Steve Green said. You know, you don't have to be real technical to make the live stream stuff happen. We did our first service that first week with an iPhone.
Well, Dave froze up last second, but I know he said that they did their first service with an iPhone. There's more than one way to skin the cat. And so we're going to bring this recording to a close. Thank you for watching. Hope it was helpful. My email is steve@gmba.org if I can help you in any way, and I appreciate it very much. And Dave, we lost you for a little bit there, brother, so you got froze up. So anyway, I'm going to sign off the recording here. Thank you guys so much. God bless. Check you down the road. Guys, y'all just hang on one second.